And welcome back to the Explain the USA channel, when we explain things about USA.
We try.
And yeah, successfully, hopefully.
Sexfully? No. Right. No sex, please. We're American.
This is a channel about USA. Okay, so I'm gonna ask Caleb to try to answer one of my questions that I made, and he's gonna get one,
select
and he's
from
gonna try to answer.
Great lake of unprepared
There's so
questions.
many great questions.
There's a lot of them. What can you tell me about the American Army? Okay.
Okay.
I can imagine that this will be a prepared question also in the future with more facts, but if you want just like my first reactions as an American, I can tell you some things.
Because the news are always all about American Army.
Even in Europe, would you say, like,
even in Europe?
Because while being here, if I'm
American
watching
Army.
news about America, I watch American news. So, as a European, what's your perspective and your opinion of the American military?
Well, that
What do you hear?
Huge. I don't know if it's biggest. Maybe Russia is, but it's all over the news all the time. So. And it seems to be the most advanced.
Right.
And there are too many soldiers in the Middle East still.
Okay.
And dying. And
If
there are still very young people in the army.
Okay. Let's see what we can say. Okay. So, yes to all.
Okay.
Thank you for watching. Next
time.
Bye. You have to be 18 to sign up for the American Army. It is a volunteer army, so no one is obligated. The people choose.
And there's a lot of volunteers.
There are a lot of volunteers.
Because it's so big.
One of the big reasons is because if you join the army, they will pay for part or all of your college education, which for many Americans is a huge financial problem because American colleges are very expensive. If you just try to pay for it yourself,
you're going to take a loan.
You take loans. And last I heard, I think the average student debt is something like $30,000 for a 4-year degree. And it could be up to 50 or 60 if you want to.
So going to army actually solves this.
It solves
the money problem.
Yeah.
And are you gonna get like a house or something?
A house, no. I mean, while you're in the army, they pay for all of your living expenses. So you're living on an army base,
right?
Which means your housing and your food is all paid, and then you get a salary on top of that. The salary is not good. It's a very low salary, but all of your expenses are paid. So that's the main motivation for young people at the age of 18, for example, joining the army for 2 to 4 years. I think you have to serve for 4 years to have your education paid for.
Okay. So after 4 years, you can be done with it, and
I think, yeah. I mean, in the beginning, I think you decide if you sign up for 2 years or 4 years.
Sounds like a good project for young people to get paid for their education and then just leave it.
This is not bad.
You think it's happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this actually takes place.
Okay.
This is why one of the main reasons why people join the army, also to get that kind of life experience and to have training while in the army. About the size of the army, you said you think it's the biggest army, but it might be Russia.
I would say it's definitely the most advanced. I'm not sure if it's the biggest. It might be. It's China or Russia.
Well, the question is, do you mean number of troops?
I mean number of troops.
Ah.
Yeah.
So, just for number of soldiers, actually, yeah, it's China. That kind of makes sense. So China with
how much?
Almost 2.2 million soldiers.
Okay. So how much?
The next one would be India with 1.4 million soldiers.
Surprising. For me, at least.
Yeah, followed very closely by the United States.
Okay. So how much?
1.3 million soldiers.
So China has almost twice more troops. Oh, not.
Yeah, well, significantly more
Yes. Okay.
more troops.
Okay.
North Korea has over 1 million soldiers.
Okay.
I think that means because India and China, it makes sense because of their huge populations.
Mm-hmm.
North Korea probably has, I think I read this somewhere, the highest number of soldiers per capita, according to their population. But these days, a war would not be about the number of soldiers, and for military expenditures, the U.S. spends more on its military than I don't know what it is now, than at least the next 5 countries put together. This is a really big political issue of talking about how much we spend in the military, and some people saying it should be more, and some people saying it should be a lot less.
So the money goes probably into the development of new weapons and armor and for the soldiers.
So the technology, the equipment. Well, I think a lot of it would go not even into the individual soldier, which I think we do spend more on an individual soldier's equipment than any other country, but more significantly when we're talking about aircraft carriers, about fighter jets, about high-tech missiles. Then for this, our research, military research and development. Defense depends on depends on the perspective, but our budget for the research, having the very newest technologies is number one in the world, for better or worse. Yeah, and you mentioned the Middle East.
Yes.
So would you say, in Europe, if you hear about the American army, it's more likely to be talking about the Middle East?
Well, in past few years, definitely.
Yeah.
Seems like there's an army in USA, and the biggest part of the army is in the Middle East still.
So when you hear stories about the Middle East, I think it's true that is right now the most violent conflict that Americans are involved in. So it's definitely where we hear that American soldiers are dying. It is the longest conflict, the longest running conflict that American soldiers have ever been involved in. So starting from 2001 to now.
Right.
So we're going on 17 years. Yeah, no other war that Americans were fighting was this long. So there's reasons for most of the news to come from there. But at the same time, it's not where most American troops are. The country with the most American troops stationed in it is Germany.
Really?
That still has a lot of American bases and actually acts as kind of a platform for American troops that could go to Africa, to the Middle East, to Eastern Europe.
A support to other countries.
Right. So Germany is still a really big cooperator with the American military, and there are lots and lots of American troops there. And besides the Middle East, right now, there are American troops in about 150 countries in the world, whether as advisors or kind of logistic support or actual combat. But the American military is essentially everywhere, because after 150 countries, what's left is some islands. So it's still a very, very significant presence in the world.
So even though it's not biggest, it's
as for number of troops,
number of troops, it's the most.
It's the most powerful. I think we can definitely say that on almost any category except for number of soldiers. And the thing is, so North Korea, for example, they have over 1 million soldiers, but a war between 1 million North Korean soldiers and 1 million American soldiers.
But the American soldiers with real weapons and North Korea soldiers with sticks.
It might not be that bad, but you see the point that it's more about the money and the equipment that's spent on it. One of, just as an aside, something that I've learned about recently that's interesting is one of the most important factors of American military power is the aircraft carriers, which
that seems like a big deal.
yeah, and America has
aircraft in general.
America has 9 or 10 aircraft carriers. The next closest country has 2, and this is basically a mobile base. So it brings American military power.
So the aircraft
anywhere.
carrier is like a base, army base
in the sea that can go anywhere. So this is these huge ships.
It's in the sea.
It's a
Because
it's a
you
ship.
said aircraft.
Yeah, aircraft carrier. So it's a ship.
This
An aircraft carrier is a ship. Yeah,
Okay.
it's the biggest ship. It's a floating city basically.
right.
It's a floating military city.
Okay.
And this means that the full power of the American military, its missiles, its planes, its troops, can be brought to any country's shores, basically, except for Czech Republic, because Czech Republic has no shores. So you're safe from the aircraft carriers. Like, they could still get you. Yeah.
We are safe from the aircraft carriers, but not the aircraft.
Not from the aircraft. Exactly. Yeah, you're not that far from the sea.
Yeah.
So the fact that the U.S. has 10 and the next closest country has 1 or 2 makes a really big difference, even more than nuclear missiles, I would say, because once we start using nuclear missiles, it's kind of over for everyone. Aircraft carriers, though, can just show up on your shore, and it's kind of like...
And of course, you have now drones.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter like how many troops you have, since you can have
this is changing
unlimited.
So this kind of technology is changing warfare, and I think for this kind of technology, the American military is usually the first one to develop some new technology and be in the front lines, except when it comes to cyber technology. I feel like I'm no expert, but I feel like we put too much research into normal warfare, like missiles and things. And now several other powers, Russia and China, have found ways around that, and they have invested much more than we have in cyber warfare. Okay. So this could be the Achilles heel of the American military strength. But that's just one American's opinion. So thank you for listening. If you have any other questions or comments about the American military, I'm sure some of you do, feel free to leave them in the comments.
And please subscribe to this channel or the Czech one if you want to see other videos.
Explain the CZ.
Explain the CZ, explain the USA, and see you next time.
Bye.